If you're a real estate investor, you need to know that nobody's sourcing deals on MLS anymore. If you're still doing that, or if you're relying on one or two realtors sourcing the deals for you, you're not doing this correctly. Chances are you're probably not going to find anything that's going to cash flow or make the number work in today's market. Today, I want to show you 3 simple steps that you can start sourcing deals off market. So step number 1 is marketing. There's 2 different ways to do it. One is on market, and when I say on market, I'm just talking about leveraging a bit of a resource on the internet. And the second thing would be going directly to the seller. So let's talk about the marketing, like on market strategy. Number 1 thing that you want to know is that there's going to be a lot of listings that's about to get expired. The motivation of the agent that want to offload this property is going to be way higher. It have gone through a long period of time where it's either the offer is not meeting the seller expectation or it's a very lowball offer. So what you want to do is to reach out to those type of agents and try to see if there's anything else that you can potentially work it out with it. And since the motivation is going to be higher and the seller maybe at this point will also be running out of time, you get to leverage a bit of time constraint to actually really force a sale at this moment. So that's one way that you can definitely do it. Another thing that you can potentially do is that you go to Facebook Marketplace, reach out to landlords, reach out to listings that don't have a great photos, great condition. These sellers might have trouble renting into the price that they want to rent out. And typically when there's a bit of pain point, you can literally just ask them, if the price was right, would you be considering offloading the property? We get quite a bit of deals taking these 2 different approaches on the market. The margin is not going to be super high, but honestly, it's a way better way for you to be sourcing deals outside the MLS. And potentially the deals that you're going to get from these 2 channels is going to be better than anything that's on the market. There's also other options that you can potentially consider. Investor lists being another one. You're basically looking at a lot of listings that provided by wholesalers who have done the initial work. Craigslist, for sale by owner, all these are basically a very good resource for you to consider outside the MLS platform. Now let's shift it a little bit away from the on-market to the off-market. Off-market, there's a few different things that you can do. Going directly to the sellers. This is really important because going directly to the sellers, you definitely need to find someone with a clear pain point and much shorter time to sell. This is the time where you can truly create a big spread for yourself. And what I really mean by that is that you gotta find the right list. Okay, not everybody's seller, so find out who's a potential seller. It's really the people who fell behind some sort of payment, mortgage payment, tax delinquency, could be some liens against their property. There's all sort of stuff, any outstanding balance that can trigger a bit of financial pain. And this is truly the people that you want to be talking to on a regular basis until they decide to sell the property to you. Some of these platforms are being used by real estate investors on the daily basis. You might be looking at PropStream, Deal Machine, Batch Leads, List Source, Preview. There's so many different platforms that's out there. Just pick one and dive into it. And honestly, all the platforms are very, very similar. You're going to see a bit of variation here and there, but the truth is PropStream can probably cover the entire things for you. And what's interesting about all of these platforms is that it actually allow you to filter out a bunch of different stuff. You get to choose the tax delinquency, tax lien, right? Pull the list out there, and you can filter out a bunch of criteria like property age, size of the property, size of the lot, and all that stuff, right? One of the things that's really important to me is that I don't want the mortgage payment to be over 50% of the assessed value. What that means is that there's a lot of room for the equity for the home. And guess what? If you think about the human psychology, people don't want to be taking a loss, but people are a lot more okay with taking a smaller profit when there's a financial situation that they need to resolve. So if you're talking to someone who's completely over leveraged, this is a big problem because for them, it might be very hard for them to justify 30, 50K, even 100K loss if they over leverage themselves and there's just no room for the property. If they can find ways to hold it, they probably will continue to hold it. And this is where the sales cycle or even negotiation can drag a lot longer. So I like to talk to people with a lot more equity in their home because this is the only way that I can truly find out exactly what their walkout price is and basically see if the number can still work for me and for the next investors. And one other things that I pay a lot of attention to is the neighborhood. So this is obviously highly depending on where you are, what your comfort level with each neighborhood, each zip code. You might be a local investor who might be comfortable getting into more like a C-class neighborhood, but for me, out-of-state investor, I always want to be looking at least like B- and totally stay away from any C and D-class neighborhoods. Now that we're talking about delinquent sellers, there's also a couple ways that you should definitely consider. And there are so many different marketing companies out there that can actually do this for you. They could be cold callers or they're running the marketing campaign for these sellers to opt into their ads. So one of the examples is Motivated Leads, iSpeed to Lead, Property Leads. There's a bunch of similar companies out there. You can literally search them up. And how these companies work is that once they qualify a delinquent seller lead and pass it over to you, and this is where you pay for the lead. Based on my experience, every $2,000 to $3,000, you're definitely going to get one deal done. And this one deal, honestly, if you think about it. So instead of you paying for the agents or a market deal where the spread is already kind of like matching the market deal, right? You're paying directly to the marketing agency to bring in the delinquent seller leads. These type of deals typically will create a lot of built-in equities. So a couple grand to the marketing agency in exchange for something with 30, 50, or even 100K built-in equity for the property. The only thing that's really involved is for you to be communicating and negotiating with the seller directly. But once you can get that done, is it worth additional 30, 50, or even 100K built-in equity for your property? In my opinion, this is a way better trade-off that I can do for my real estate deals. So these are the options I highly recommend you consider in today's market if you want to further scaling up your portfolio. Step number 2 is the process and system. This part is very short and sweet. Basically, all you have to do is to have a spreadsheet or even a CRM to categorize all the sellers' leads. Because at this point, the volume in the conversation is going to be way higher than just talking to a couple agents. I highly recommend you start making notes, and so that you're not forgetting about the conversation. All these details in the conversation is really what creates a connection with the seller. And guess what? People want to do business with people who they like. So if you can get into the habit of always documenting what the conversation was about, next time you talk to the same person, at least you can bring up those details and really bring that relationship close. And that's how we can truly create a meaningful relationship and then create a win-win situation for both you and the seller. Step number 3 is acquisition, and this is where I talk about the negotiation and try to get the property under contract. It doesn't matter if you're investor, wholesalers, or anything, we gotta do this part correctly, especially when you're dealing with delinquent sellers or any sellers directly. Most important thing here is to find out what their problem is. It's not about the price. This really isn't the only thing that people care about at this stage. What it really means is that people who don't have any financial concerns or they can wait for the top dollar, they will easily go up to any realtors and just list it on the market. That's not really what I'm talking about here. What we're trying to figure out is providing a solution to people who have a pain point, or it could be high pain point or low pain point, but some sort of pain point, and their time frame to sell is a little bit shorter. This is where you kind of go in there with a bit of empathy and try to figure out exactly what you can provide the right solution to their problem. Sometimes people are hitting their retirement age, or sometimes they going through divorces. Sometimes they just don't have enough financial resource to, pay for the bills and maybe medical situation, right? So there's a bunch of moving parts that can come into this conversation. And the line here is very simple. What has you thinking of selling your property? What triggered the thoughts, right? And then you also ask them, how come you didn't want to go for, on-market deal? Use those type of language and use empathy to really understand exactly why they're not making certain decisions. And if they give you a clear answer on why they're unable to consider those options, then this is where you really come in here to understand the time frame, their price point, and all that stuff. We break down this whole acquisition negotiation processing into 3 different steps: process code, offer code, and contract code. Process code is the initial touch point where you kind of understand the motivation, really understand the time frame and all that stuff. Number 2, offer code is where you really understand the offer. This is a part where we go through a lot of underwriting process to determine our max offer with a cash offer. Okay, there's also obviously a different creative way that we can potentially consider, but that's really where we want to kind of figure out. And once we really understand this and go a bit of back and forth with the sellers to identify the comfortable number, and this is where we go into the contract call. And contract call is a Zoom call, face-to-face. We go over each details with our purchase agreement. We can try to clarify if there's any questions, and if there's no more questions and you both have an understanding of how the numbers should work, then this is where you can actually get that property under contract. And this is exactly how you source an off-market deal with delinquent sellers directly in today's market. If you get some value out of this, like, subscribe, and I'll include another video to show you exactly how we use PropStream to pull that list.